So JD Vance might be jeopardizing his chances at the Republican nomination. That's according to Politico. They talked to leaders who are in favor of Israel in this country, and they say, well, you know what? We might not pick him to be the Republican nominee. Wait, I thought they didn't control anything. But Politico is writing about who they're going to pick to be the next Republican nominee for president. So Yaz, tell us about it.
Yeah, and JD Vance might be in trouble with all of this because he has been seemingly jeopardizing that relationship that he's been trying to build with pro-Israel GOP donors. The pro-Israel GOP donors, they traditionally have been backing the Trump administration, but JD Vance, the vice president, has been very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu's government, and he also has expressed support for a ceasefire agreement with Iran, and that is something that Israel has not been very happy about. And the pro-Israel community doesn't seem to know what to do with JD Vance. He is the vice president in the pro-Israel Trump administration, but according to many pro-Israel donors and activists, JD Vance is not well liked in the community. So one prominent Jewish GOP donor and bundler granted anonymity to speak openly said that he sees overwhelming unease, quote unquote, unease with the vice president in the pro-Israel community. And they said that there's angst among a significant majority of pro-Israel Republicans, Christians, and Jews alike. Overwhelmingly, I am seeing unease, and it could be even worse than that. And this should be very concerning for the GOP, especially considering that JD Vance is supposed to be one of the front runners for the GOP presidential nomination in 2028. And that race, by the way, is expected to be the most expensive presidential race in our nation's history. So it's going to be very costly. They have to be very careful with who it is that they nominate. But meanwhile, another strong contender for the nomination is, of course, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And apparently he has been staking his claim on the anti-Israel woke right. And that's according to a prominent Jewish GOP donor and bundler. They said that he's looking around at his political future and sees that no potentially viable 2028 candidate is in this lane. Vance seems to have that lane locked up. So what is interesting about this is that JD Vance has found himself in a pickle, and it has got him parroting something that people on the left and critics of Israel have been saying for a long time. And this is really, really funny to me. Vance is now in the position of attempting to distinguish his criticism of the Israeli government from anti-Semitism. This is what he said. He said they're a good partner in the same way the United Kingdom or France are good partners. That doesn't mean that we're always going to have aligned interests, he said, of the Israeli government. In the same way that sometimes criticism of the Israeli government can be expressed in a way that's anti-Semitic, it's just not the case that every criticism of Bibi Netanyahu's policy decisions leads to anti-Semitism or is anti-Semitic. There's a danger in conflating criticism of a particular government with Jew hatred, he added, because if everything is Jew hatred, then nothing is Jew hatred. I actually think Jew hatred is very bad. And yes, we know, we have been saying this whole time. We have been saying this, but recent events aside, apparently Israel supporters have been giving JD Vance the side eye for a while for things that the vice president has done or said that do appear to be actually anti-Semitic.
How many of you guys are guilty of doom scrolling late at night on social media, looking at the news and then wondering why you can't fall asleep? Nothing pairs worse with trying to wind down than a bright screen lighting up your face and headlines playing on a loop in your head. Here's what's actually happening. The stress, the screen time, it all raises your core body temperature. And a body that's too warm can't get into deep sleep. Trust me, getting your sleep environment under control can change everything. Enter ChiliPad 2.0, the water-based mattress topper that actively controls your bed temperature from 55 to 115 degrees all night long. No new mattress, no renovation. It actively cools using just water. Fans only move hot air around. ChiliPad actually pulls heat away from your body. Precise, consistent comfort, and the new nightstand remote senses when you get into bed and kicks on automatically. Dual zones mean you and your partner each set your your own temperature, no subscription needed. You get a 2-year warranty, and they're designed and assembled right here in the USA. Visit www.sleep.me/TYT to get up to $255 off your ChiliPad 2.0 with code TYT. That's www.sleep.me/TYT. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial so you can test it out, dream big, and wake up better. The headlines will still be there in the morning. You might as well wake up ready for them.
So for example, when the group chat for the Young Republicans group was leaked, we saw them praising Hitler. And rather than strongly condemning the participants in the chat for their actual anti-Semitism, JD Vance just said, kids do stupid things. And that was not enough for the pro-Israel coalition. Also at a Turning Point USA event, Vance was asked why the US supports Israel when the Jewish religion is antagonistic towards Christianity. And in Vance's response, he did not address or correct the assertion that the student had made substantially enough. So students are one thing though, pro-Israel billionaire donors are another thing, and several of them are already signaling their support for Rubio in 2028 over JD Vance. Cenk, what is JD Vance gonna do about this?
All right, I actually find this story amazing on a number of grounds. First of all, Politico just reports it and kind of positively, like, these, as they call them, prominent Jewish GOP donors are saying, well, we won't give money to JD Vance, we'll give it to Marco Rubio so that Marco Rubio can win, and we're gonna give him a lot of money and we're not gonna give Vance any money, and we wanna pick Rubio so he serves Israel. Wait, I thought that was a trope. In fact, if I wrote this exact same piece, they would say, I'm anti-Semite, can you believe these tropes and stuff? In fact, we never even characterize as Jewish donors. We say, because I don't think that's accurate. I think, you remember, two-thirds of Jewish voters in America are against the Netanyahu government. We say more accurate pro-Zionist or radical Zionist donors, and that's who these people are. And I can prove that they're radical Zionists. They don't even care about Jews in America. Wait, how could that be? Well, that's because, for example, Donald Trump on the Charlottesville march where they had neo-Nazis marching in the streets saying the Jews will not replace us, he equivocated on that. So, there's debate about, did he say there's very fine people on the Nazi side or the Confederate side? But overall, he equivocated on something that stark. Then he went to a Republican Jewish group and said, no one likes to renegotiate more than this room. Meaning that's another old stereotype about Jews in America and elsewhere, etc. And they saw all of these things that if someone who was opposed to Israel had said that, they would have totally savaged them. Anti-Semitic, anything way worse than anything Tucker Carlson has said or anyone else that they call anti-Semitic. But they didn't mind any of that. They're like, you wanna spread stereotypes and tropes and even chant against Jews in the streets of America? No problem, as long as you support and finance Israel. They're not for Jewish Americans. They're only for their beloved Israel, which is a different country than ours. But Politico, I appreciate the confession that Zionist donors are clearly picking who our candidates are. So and one of them, as you saw in the piece there, said there's no other potentially viable candidates in that lane, meaning we've cut off the funding for everyone else. But since JD Vance is the vice president, just cutting off his funding might not work. So we're gonna pour all of our money into Rubio, who is going to serve a different country, not our country. And they celebrate it like, we can't wait to finance Rubio to betray you and to serve Israel instead. Thank you for the confession, I appreciate it. Read the Politico story yourself. It is an amazing admission that all the so-called tropes are totally and utterly true in regards to people who are pro-Israel financing all of our politicians, having an enormous role in who the candidates are. When we say it, they go, how dare you, you can't do that. When they say it, they think, yeah, okay, great. We're reporting how wonderful the pro-Israeli lobby is for saying, JD Vance. By the way, JD Vance is dining with Miriam Adelson and all the Israel First donors anyway. These peace negotiations appear to have been a total trick and an ambush of Iran because the war has restarted anyway. But even if you're faking it, even if you disagree with Israel 0.01%, Israel First will come for you. No, we demand 100% loyalty to Israel and not to America. Thank you very much, Politico. I want to make sure we put the link to the article in the description box on YouTube and elsewhere, because I want you to see how clearly they say, yes, these politicians will be picked by enormously wealthy pro-Israel donors, and you will serve them no matter what. And they are very brazen about who they're going to eliminate because they weren't sufficiently loyal to Israel. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.